I'm done trying to live up to others' expectations. Family, society, class, race, sex, or religions. It's time to break free from the isms that make us feel like we're in prison. I'm ready to be unleashed as fuck. I'm ready to be unleashed as fuck. Tired of the madness, done with the sadness. Gonna break free and be unleashed.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Unleashed AF podcast, where we help you to step into your greatness and show your authentic self. I'm your host, Deidre Beecham, alongside the incredible Jenny Badig, the inner space engineer. And so today, okay, I guess I need to keep on with my little note here. I'm a visibility catalyst dedicated to helping high-achieving women like you break free from nice girl training and embrace your inner power voice. Jenny is my amazing co-host, and she brings her unique expertise as a hypnotherapist and former engineer to help you reprogram your mindset and unleash your true potential.
And we're taking a different kind of a sidestep from what we've been doing lately, and we're going to kind of go to a different topic today. But as always, of course, regardless of what topic we're talking about or who we're interviewing, we do love hearing from you. So don't hesitate to drop your thoughts and questions in the comments or chat. We want to make this a dynamic and interactive session, if at all possible. So, and we also have a section on our website, by the way, that if you have some kind of topic you'd like us to talk about, you can go to our website, which is unleashedafpodcast.com, and look for the menu option up top that says WWJDD. That's what would Jenny and Deidre do? So you can ask us a question. You can give us a topic suggestion or however you want to use that to kind of communicate with us, something you'd like us to do on the pod in the future. Or if you'd like to be a guest on our podcast and share a story that you feel would be impactful to our viewers and listeners, you can fill out a guest application on that same website, which again is unleashedafpodcast.com.
Wonderful. Yeah. And today, as Jenny was mentioning, we were going to have CJ Scarlett on and to talk about, excuse me, her leash and especially her trip to visit the Dalai Lama. And it's a great story. I've actually heard it, but she's going to come another time. We're going to wish her well. She's going through some family issues at the moment. So we wish her speedy recovery, her family speedy recovery, and we'll have her on another time. So today I thought something happened this week with a hidden leash. We've been talking a lot about leashes that are right out there in the open. You can see them, you can feel them, you know what they are. And I had one just kind of sneak up out of nowhere.
Peekaboo.
Yeah. And when we couldn't get our guest today, we were talking about it and thought maybe this would be a good thing to talk about because you can have a leash just kind of comes out of nowhere and it can be very surprising. And Jenny's going to relate. Turns out she has something as well. So this should be an interesting thing to talk about. And so I'm looking forward to it. Excuse me, I have to get a little sip of water.
Sure. Get yourself all watered up there.
So I was telling Jenny, I've been making a lot of big moves because I'm starring in a one-woman show called The Medusa Chronicles, which I'm super excited about.
Whoop.
And yeah, it's really a big step. And but I know it's the right thing, and I've been moving forward with it. And it's crazy that as I'm making these moves, and some people have asked me, well, what gave you the courage or the wherewithal to think you could do this? I told them, wow, because I love myself, having gone through the 27-month experiment, I understand that the biggest thing that was keeping me, and I think keeps a lot of women from moving forward, is not truly understanding how divine we are. I mean, we have so much within us that is so amazing and expansive, and we don't touch into it. We don't tap into it because we don't love ourselves. We're so disconnected from ourselves. And the more you can connect to yourself, the more you realize just what's out there, and you can receive what I call getting into the flow. And I know that you call it the same thing, Jenny, getting into the flow.
Yep.
And so you can get into the flow, and I get these really cool ideas about how to move forward, and it's exciting. And I just keep moving forward. So that's what I've been doing. But what's crazy about that is you have to keep elevating yourself. It's constant elevation. So I was in the shower, and showers are a great place for, at least for me, for getting ideas. I think it has something to do with water, with the water flowing.
You are literally in the flow when you're in the shower.
Right? You're literally in the flow, and your body is so much water, and then you're in the water, and then I had high vibrational frequency music on, and that's a thing. And so it was just awesome. And then I started thinking about my legs, and I've had problems with my legs my whole life, as far as I've had hip issues, I've had back issues, which have affected my legs. I've had just large legs. I really don't like working them out. It always feels painful and like drudgery. While I was in the shower, I was dancing. And I started thinking about how much I enjoyed dancing when I was a kid, how much I enjoyed pretend boxing, and how much I loved hiking and riding my bike and running. I thought, wait a minute. Why don't I like working out my legs? Sure sounds like I loved working them out when I was a kid.
Yeah. When you don't think it's a workout, when you think you're just having fun, then it's great. They get worked out.
Yeah. And I thought about that because that's how I've always tried to approach it. I'm like, oh, it's my adult brain. It's, I'm looking at it. It's because I'm trying to lose weight. And so I've tried changing my attitude about it. I've tried all of those things, and it's been really frustrating. So the epiphany was, by the age of 12, I started using those exercises as a way to relieve the trauma that I was experiencing. So I was running to relieve stress. I was running to relieve myself from being SA'd. It was to escape. So running was to escape, biking was to escape, everything was riding my horse was escape. It was all escaping. And I don't want to escape anymore. but I'm not serving myself, because I'm not being true to myself. Which is, I enjoyed all those things before the sexual assault. I enjoyed all of those things before things started going downhill. And I thought, wow. And I just started crying. Crying, just thinking about all the years that I allowed that to just kind of hold myself back. But I wasn't ready. I just wasn't ready to finally just let all of that go. And yeah, I came out and I was talking to my wife about it, and she says, there's more to this. I'm like, what? She says, will you allow me to be counselor for a moment? Yes, please. Because that's her.
Start the clock.
That's her background.
Yeah.
And she always asks permission. She's not counseling me all the time, because I was just like, we're not doing that.
Right.
Would you allow me to be counselor? Absolutely. And she said, the first thing I thought of was when your dad grabbed your leg. That's right. And it wasn't a sexual thing. What he did was he grabbed my leg. I was talking about how beautiful Whitney Houston was. She had just done this huge performance, and she was at the top of the world, and she just looked gorgeous. And my dad grabbed my leg, and he shook it. And he goes, he like slaps it and goes, well, you'll never look like Whitney Houston, baby. and it just crushed me. It crushed me. And it's so funny because years later, I had looked back because I just immediately thought, oh my gosh, I'm fat. I'm fat. My dad thinks I'm fat. Everybody thinks I'm fat. I have these big, ugly legs. And I look back at those pictures and I was stunning. How could I not be? I was running 10Ks. I played volleyball. I ran track. I threw shot put. I mean, I rode a horse. I rode a bike. I used to run. I mean, what?
Mm-hmm.
And I allowed him to get in my psyche for so long, this leash that got stuck down into my legs.
Yeah.
You
know, the way you said that he said that to you, to me, now this may just be, I am interpreting it wrong, but to me, kind of the thought that came to my mind was, it was almost like it was a relief to him to think, oh, you'll never look like her.
Oh no, he was fangirled after Whitney Houston.
Okay.
He thought she was drop dead gorgeous. Great
but
voice.
Would he have been comfortable with his daughter
body.
being that?
No, it was all about, he was shaking my leg and looking down at my leg and you'll never look like, he was looking at my leg. You'll never look like Whitney Houston, baby. You don't have to worry about that.
Okay.
And yeah. Nope. He was fun. So yeah, it's all attached. So I told my wife, I said, oh my goodness, I need to honor my legs. I need to start taking care of them. And it's no wonder that my legs are so tight. I started doing stretches and I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm so tight. And that was when I had the whole experience in the shower. And so yeah. So I'm going to take care of them, and I am taking care of them, and I'm stretching and exercising them. I decided today I'm going to do a mud run.
Awesome.
Yes. So, crazy. End of September. And yeah, so, but you said you had something similar.
Yeah, well, and actually another thing that I thought of just then when you were talking about the way he commented on your legs, and maybe the reason that I interpreted it differently is because I remember when I was young, like in high school, volleyball was always my sport. I loved volleyball. I played it since I was like 10 or 12 years old. And of course, I didn't have the physical stature to be an outstanding tall volleyball player. You wouldn't think by seeing me I was volleyball, but I kind of peaked out around 5'6". But I remember when I would lift weights outside of my volleyball season with like the track team, the girls track team, or, other sports teams that were in the gym at the time. I got up to the point where I was squatting 300 pounds. Whoa. And not just as a max, I'd do a set of 300-pound squats. And yeah, but when I was working my way up to that was a cool goal for me to hit 300.
Yeah.
And my parents, when I mentioned it to them, both of them really, I don't think it was just one of them, both of them were like, well, we're just really concerned that, your legs are just going to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Bulk up.
Yeah. And I'm like, Arnold Schwarzenegger, like, I'm not taking roids. I'm not 6'5" or whatever. Like,
I think we should normalize women being strong. What is wrong with women being strong?
Right.
It all harkens back to how, the whole idea of, well, men need to be saving the women. And I've even heard men say, well, I'm not going to date a woman stronger than me.
Mm-hmm.
But we're all expected to date a man stronger than us.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just that's not true.
Just crazy. I'm sorry.
That's something where people fake it quite often. They might let the man think they're stronger, but
That's true too.
It's not always true. But yeah, so the other thing though, when we were talking about it earlier, wasn't related to the leg. That was when you mentioned that I was like, oh, I got a leg thing too. Which could be part of why my hip has been so tight lately. And I told you before, I'm starting to look into somatic yoga to see if that can help kind of loosen things and just get me back on track in terms of my health in general. Cause it's been very limiting to have like knee pain, hip pain, tightness, all that stuff. It makes it hard to do exercise because it's painful.
Yeah,
I mean, I used to go to the gym quite a bit and I enjoyed it. And like I said, I used to squat 300 pounds. I am not doing anywhere close to that now, but I don't even hardly use my legs because there's so many things about using them that end up being painful because they're so tight. So I'm looking forward to really starting to do some consistent somatic yoga. And I know you've talked about doing some somatic exercise yourself and
it's
felt
just
helpful.
fantastic.
Yeah.
If you haven't done it before, it's something. It's one of the things that can surprise people is it can trigger deep emotional releases.
Mm,
You just bawl, and it's okay. Let it go. Don't try and hold it back. Now, I'm not a professional. This is just my personal
right.
experience. My personal experience is
Hmm.
that if you hold it in, then you're just prolonging the release. So,
Yep.
um, just let it go, and oh my goodness, but yeah, it can release in stages. But it is absolutely exhausting and wonderful all at the same time. Yeah, I
Yeah.
highly recommend it. So I hope it works out for you. I really do.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
I'm
planning
excited.
on using
I'll
it.
probably be reporting my progress on the podcast.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna
So,
be using it to help with my hips and my legs because, yeah, it's been so helpful for so many other things. Now, and of course, a lot of those leashes were things I saw. I mean, I knew they were happening. I could feel it. I could feel all the tension
mhm.
building all the time. And I mean, this was more of a revelation
Yeah.
or an epiphany.
Well, and
But
I think there are a lot of leashes that start off as hidden. They're not as obvious to us,
yeah.
but the longer they go and we don't address them or do something about them, they become physical. Like that's actually
Oh,
when
oh gosh, yeah.
physical dis-ease happens in the body. So
Mhm.
absolutely that makes sense that, it's you've been holding on to it for a while and now you've finally been able to figure out what's causing those physical issues and you can address it. Once it's
Right.
out of the light,
And
then
it's
it's
interesting that it's to me, it's like this constant evolution of awakening to yourself. At least that's what I have found for me is that there's
Mhm.
just this constant awakening to myself. And the more I've slowed down and just like stayed with myself, people always talk about holding space for each other. I think the first place you have to do is hold space for yourself. Right?
Mhm.
Hold space for yourself and sit in that place where it might get uncomfortable and allow yourself to feel whatever those feelings are. Um, but yeah, it's really really fun stuff when you're doing really well and then something hits you, and that's how it felt. I was like, man, I'm doing so well, things are going great, and they're like, whoa, here's this thing. Oh yeah, that's right. There's always another level of something. If there's any kind of what I'm starting to recognize, I'm so glad you brought that up. This ease of the body is that I'm noticing that if there is something in my body, it's associated with something. It's associated with something. I seem to
Mhm.
figure it out.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm slowly becoming more and more aware of those things. So I
Yeah,
think
and
it was time.
one of the things that I have on my office wall that a lot of clients, when they see it, they're like, "Oh, that's so interesting. Like, now these things make sense," is the Roby chart, which I think Louise Hay talked about that in some of her books. But it's a chart. It shows the human body, and it like kind of has call outs to different things on the body or different areas, and talks about either the beliefs or the emotions that are related to that part of the body. So it doesn't always necessarily explain every pain or itch or scratch or whatever you have.
Sure.
But if you've had like chronic issues in a certain area, something to think about looking into in terms of, wait, do I have an issue with that kind of belief system? Is that a limiting belief I have that I need to get unstuck from or unleashed from? So that's something to kind of keep in mind too. And you can just Google Roby chart and find like a PDF of it or something that you can look at. But
And can you spell that?
ROBY. So then the other thing that we were talking about earlier, because you mentioned you were dancing and singing in the shower. And
that's right.
You said singing. I was like, oh yeah, I had a leash about that too. This goes back. This isn't something I just realized recently. Back when I was like a decade ago, when I was going through my hypnotherapy training, every couple of months we would go in for like a 3-day practicals, I think they called it, where we would get one-on-one, like in-person practice, actually being a practice therapist, getting kind of mentorship, real-time feedback from the instructors and other experienced hypnotherapists. And so one time it was my turn next to be like the practice client. And we always had to come up with something that we wanted that session to kind of focus on, or what we wanted to get out of it. And so this one time I was sitting there, it wasn't my turn yet. So I'm thinking, what do I want to work on? And I thought, oh, it's sort of weird that like I used to sing in choir when I was in school. I have a decent singing voice. I'm no like Katy Perry or Mariah Carey or anything like that. No plans or goals to even be close to that, but, or Whitney Houston. Not going to be that from a singing perspective for sure. But I'd never even sung karaoke in public before. I'd done it at home for myself because I enjoyed singing, but I'd never done it in public before. And I thought, what's up with that? Like, you don't even have to be a good singer to do karaoke. And I knew I was at least that good. So I thought, yeah, maybe I'll do that. Like, let's just figure out what's behind that. And as I was waiting for it to be my turn, I thought, oh, I know what that probably goes back to, because I remember being like in the back seat. My brother and I were in the back seat of the car coming home from dinner one night. I don't remember exactly how old I was, but probably in my early teens or something like that. And I was singing along to whatever was on the radio, because that's just what I did back then. And out of the blue, my brother turned to me and he said, "Shut up, you suck." And I thought, there we go. That's probably what stopped me from ever singing in public, doing karaoke and stuff on my own.
You internalized it, yeah. Which is the same thing I did with my dad, as I internalized it.
The thing that was even more interesting, though, was when it was my turn to then be the client. So I'm thinking, I'm just going to pretend like I'm hypnotized. I'm just going to lay here. I already know where this is going. So I'm just going to like tell them what the story is. I'm just going to pay attention to what the instructor's saying. And, so I'm just playing along. But sure enough, he did something. I can't remember who it was, but it was a guy that was like the practice therapist in that case. He did something that I didn't expect. I think he either like tapped me on the forehead or snapped his finger or something. And right when he did that, when he was prompting me for like, where is the subconscious taking you? And that whole like movie that I had prepared in my mind to describe, exited, stage left. And instead, I had this memory of when I was earlier than that, like a little younger than that, still probably at least 8 or 10 years old, something like that. We were sitting at the dinner table at home, and my mom had made, I think it was like macaroni and cheese with ham or something like that. And I wasn't even a fan of her mac and cheese. So adding the ham didn't make it better. So, and we didn't have a dog or anything that I could like, sweep it off the plate for the dog. So I'm sitting there looking at this dinner and I'm thinking, I don't want this. And I have nothing else. Like, I can't sit here and pretend to eat it because I got nowhere to put it. And so I actually spoke up and said, I'm not going to eat this. And that didn't go over well. And I'm sure it was the first time that I'd ever said, no, thank you. I'm not eating this. And I remember kind of almost backpedaling a little bit, going, oh, I'm not asking you, when she got mad, I'm not asking you to make anything else. I'll make myself a peanut butter and jelly. Like, I'm not asking you to go out of your way to do something else for me. I'm just saying, I'm not eating this. I'm informing you this is not going in there. And so as I'm describing that, I'm like, what the hell does that have to do with singing? Like something like I must have skipped a track or something. And, and then we got to the point where he prompted me he said, what did that make you believe about yourself? And the thing that came to me, like just right out of the blue, was I'm not allowed to express myself. And I thought, oh.
Yeah.
So, and that was, I mean, that was a more broad thing, even obviously, than singing, but singing is a form of expression for sure.
Absolutely,
So,
it is.
you know, I thought, wow, that even went further back than I realized. You know, it wasn't just
Wow.
about my bratty little brother telling me I sucked,
Mhm.
which I didn't, but, you know, I thought that makes even more sense because I wouldn't have fought back at that idea, you know, that you're not allowed to speak up and not allowed to say anything because that was getting reinforced, you know, when you go to church, when you know, you don't speak up against your parents, all those things. So
Mhm.
that was the thing that seemed to be the thing for me. And
You
the
know,
even more
nice girl
interesting
training.
thing, yeah, the thing that tended or seemed to be a result of that was within, I want to say, a year or two after that, even though for me, I was just taking it as like, this isn't even a real session. I'm just kind of going along because we're practicing. But within a year or two of that, I was singing, not even karaoke, but I sang a solo at a talent show in a conference, like a entrepreneur. It was a WPN conference. They had a talent show at the end of one of their days of their conference, and it was in front of probably somewhere between 200 and 300 people.
Wow.
And I sang a solo all by myself. Like, and I thought that would have never happened before,
Wow.
you
That's
know? So
fantastic.
it really does make a difference to be able to go in and kind of bring that stuff out into the light, because once you're aware of it, just like what you're
Yeah.
talking about with your legs, once you're aware of it, then you can start to do something differently or do something about it. It's
Exactly.
not just that hidden leash anymore. If you don't see the leash, it's really hard to get rid of it.
Exactly. Yeah, because telling myself that, you know, it's just because I'm not doing something fun, it's just because wasn't just wasn't working. I was trying all sorts of things, but it's because I'm absolutely convinced it's because there's just trauma trapped in my legs. And so I'm definitely doing some somatic exercises. There are some that are two person, and so I'm going to
Mm,
employ my wife to help
mm.
me to release some of the tension in my hips. But yeah, yeah, I highly recommend it. And somatic yoga, that sounds fascinating. So you'll have to tell me if you do end up doing the somatic yoga.
Yeah.
I
I
look
mean, I
forward to
watched
hearing that.
a YouTube video the other day. Give me a second. And it actually looked pretty fun. I mean,
Yeah,
one of the things, I mean, I hesitate sometimes to do traditional yoga because with the tightness in my hips and stuff like that, I can't get into some of the positions
yeah,
that are traditional. I can't sit butterfly. I can't, I mean, there's just several positions where I'm like, oop, can't get there. Sorry. There's like a catch in my hip that it just doesn't, my leg doesn't go that way. And
right.
so this was all just very flowy and a lot of, you know, flicking the stuff off and moving the jaw and things like that. I'm like, well, that I can do.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I have this one where I was trying to get rid of just I was just full of all of this angst and anxiety in my body, and so just like take a deep breath and then just throw your voice and everything out of you and just like throw your body over and just release all that energy. It's awesome. Boy, that I remember the first time I did that just made me cry and cry and cry.
Mm,
It's just crazy. And what's interesting is all of the years of therapy I've had and all of the coaching I've had, I did not realize. I guess the disconnect that I had is I had done all of this work up here, but what I didn't understand and grasp is how much memory is in our muscles, how much
yep.
memory is in our body. And
Yeah.
that if
Our
you don't do
tissues, our
something to
organs. Yeah.
release, yeah, if you don't do something to release all of that trauma from your body, it's still sitting there.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. And, another thing actually that this is making me think of from my hypnotherapy training, we were taught that part of what we can do with our clients is talk to them about where they feel. And when we get them to feel some sort of emotion, while they're hypnotized, where they feel it physically. And there's like a core, typically you can feel it somewhere in your core, like between your chin and your pelvis, basically. So it's like sometimes their chest gets tight, or their heart feels heavy, or their stomach feels like, nauseous or whatever. Or sometimes their throat even feels like constricted. And that can be just a sense of not being able to express themselves or something along those lines. And it's not that we had to interpret that for them, but just make them aware that it does actually show up, that emotional energy shows up physically in your body. And then once we've taken them through a transformation, we have them check back in with that, and they don't feel it anymore. So that's a nice kind of reinforcement of doing that kind of work, the kind of release, whether they actually have an authentic emotional release or if we use imagery to get rid of it. One of the most powerful techniques that I use with my clients is just an imagery thing where I talk about, all the, if it's like anger or any kind of hot energy, especially something that just feels like that. Imagine a magnet that is like specially tuned to attract that energy, that frequency out of you, just passing over your body and pulling all of it out. So if they can't emotionally like connect to it and have either tears or words come out, get shit off their chest, there's a magnet that's going to just pass over you and pull all that out. And we throw it onto a bonfire, just let it burn up.
Yeah,
it's not yours anymore. You can let it burn up and transform, and it's done. So that can be an extremely powerful thing. Sometimes people literally feel like their arms are getting like pulled up because there's so much stuff that's stuck in them.
Yeah. And it's your mind is so powerful. And I've, as I've learned more and more and been, because I'm just so wide open, I'm just like, teach me. It's been crazy understanding just how much power we actually do have in our minds, and not just to help ourselves, but and hurt ourselves. I mean, sometimes that's our biggest leash, is how we're defeating ourselves in our own minds. But it's extraordinary how much power we have if you just start to understand it, and understanding how to raise your vibrational frequency, and how your thoughts become things. But anyway, that's next week. But it's it's a very, very fascinating topic, just how crazy powerful your mind is, even to create your reality, which I used to think was hogwash, and it is so true. I just didn't understand it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. And I mean, I tell clients all the time, the power of imagery is amazing in the subconscious. And to the extent that if you think about it, like the subconscious doesn't really have direct access to the outside world. So it relies on imagery and things it hears, like the senses basically, to inform it, along with your experience, the stuff that's kind of already in there. Which makes me think of the movie Inside Out. Like that new movie Inside Out 2 just came out. I have not seen it yet, but that's it's kind of a simplified way of looking at it. But those different emotional characters really do like live in our heads. They live in our bodies, and they absolutely can influence how we react to things. So it's not that far off from kind of how we actually work. That's a great movie, especially for kids, to try to understand that there's more going on in terms of how they respond to things.
I know some adults that need it too, but
oh, absolutely.
But yeah, absolutely, it's a fun movie.
Yeah,
a lot of fun. All right, awesome. Now we have any other? I don't think we have any other segments today. We want to talk about next week's show. Next week's show is we are going to talk about how to. Oh, well, what you wrote it down?
Yeah. Yeah. I
You
mean, next
wrote it
week,
down?
it'll be the 5th of July when we come on next week. And because that's sort of a patriotic time, and this is, we're in an election year, which is now hot and heavy since we've now had a debate and all that interesting
Yeah,
stuff.
which came really early this year.
Yeah.
So
So as much as we love being in an election cycle and getting, bombarded by all the ads and everything out now, it's like, all the stuff on social media and stuff as well. We were saying, we want to try to help you guys figure out or really have some tools to unleash yourself from what we're calling the election swamp, because there's going to be just a lot of muck, you know, being hurled back and forth. It's not going to be pretty on either side.
It's really easy to get kind of sucked into
Yeah.
the muck, the political muck. You're going to see it a lot, and there's a lot of reactions that you can have. You can kind of go down the pipe hole with it, or go, I don't want to hear any of it. And so we're going to talk about, how do you still care? Because I think we both believe it's very important for you to still care, because even if you don't like the fact that we only have a two-party system right now, it is what we have at the moment. And so right now is not when it's going to change. It needs to change between the election year.
Yeah.
Right now it is what it is. So how do you rise above the muck of it all and keep your sanity and still
Right.
care?
Right. And keep hope and positivity alive in the whole thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
Which
we're going
is
to talk about that.
Yeah. And that's where you said something about thoughts are things.
Mhm.
And that's kind of how that ties in. If we can, put our focus on how we'd like things to look, we don't always have control of the timing of it, but the more we have sort of an organized mass of people thinking about what they'd like to see in government or politics, the better the chance that we'll be able to see that at some point. But if we're always just focusing on the negative and what we don't want and things like that, or just mudslinging, we're not going to make it there. So yeah, that's what we want to focus on next week. And I could do the sponsor mention again.
Yeah.
That we did last week.
Yeah.
So
great.
we'll talk about that real quick. This is Osrine Natural Skincare. It is free of all the stuff that can potentially be toxic to your skin. It's non-GMO. There's no sulfates or parabens in it. It's not, tested on animals or anything like that. So it is handmade locally down here in the Brevard County area, a woman-owned business. And I've got the Earthly Healer lotion is the thing that I ordered and have used it. And it's helped both myself and my boyfriend with some skin abnormalities. So I had like a biopsy thing done, and the scar or the scab from that was not healing very quickly. Within a few days using that lotion, it was looking great. It had progressed significantly when it felt like it hadn't been progressing at all. And with him, he had some burns on his arm that look, you almost can't see him anymore. And he's had those burn marks for quite a while. So we were really happy with it. And you can get 10% off if you want to purchase some and try it for yourself. If you go to osrineskincare.com, you can see how that's spelled there on the screen. And then osrineskincare.com/unleashedafpod, and then use the discount code when you check out, unleashedafpod. That'll give you 10% off your order. So we appreciate them for giving us that opportunity.
Awesome. That's fantastic. Now let's see. I have over here. Here we go. So if you have enjoyed today's podcast, please tell your friends. We really would love to have you share. And if you have a topic that you'd like for us to talk about on the show, or a question that you want answered, then please go to our website at afpodcast.com. Check out the section WWJDD. What would Jenny and Deidre do? I love that. That just cracks me up. Or if you would like to be a guest on our podcast, you can fill out the guest application. And if we deem you worthy, I'm just kidding. We'd love to have you on the show. We will interview you ahead of time. And if it's a great fit for us and for the audience, then we will absolutely invite you to be on the show. So please do that. And thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
Is there anything else? Is there anything else we want to share, Jenny?
Follow, subscribe. We're still not quite up to our 100 followers on Facebook so that we can go live there. So keep spreading the word, getting people not only to watch the video, but also to follow us as follow the page, so that we can get back to doing it live, both on YouTube and Facebook. That'd be great.
Awesome. So thank you so much. And we'll see you next week. Take care.
I'm done trying to live up to others' expectations. Family, society, class, race, sex, or religions. It's time to break free from the isms that make us feel